1 year, I had 3 of them.
Yeah.
Here, the rental, probably, we put it to the
Yeah, they're saying that.
That comes fast.
Guys, over on the course, because there's no place to stay there. They're staying at the campground.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk to them, see what, maybe I'll put it in the hands of my friend, Scott. See what. He's got everybody he can talk to. It'd be an investment, be a nice investment. But I'm not using that whole building.
I didn't figure, yeah. So it's favorable there.
The Land and Water UW Extension meeting will come to order. Was the meeting properly announced?
Yes.
Yes. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, roll call. It looks like everybody's here except for Chuck. And I don't know, he doesn't look like he's online, so we'll consider him excused. We're gonna move on to the agenda. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the correction of the meeting date reflecting the new year of 2023. And go ahead, Bruce.
You mean for the next meeting?
Yes, for the next meeting
Okay.
to be,
Yeah, I move with the correction.
okay. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. Going to the minutes. Has everyone had the opportunity to review the minutes? Go ahead, Bruce.
Motion that the minutes be approved. This is it.
Okay. As there are no corrections, the minutes are approved. We don't really need a first and a second on that, but I appreciate it. Public participation and correspondence. All right, we'll go on to the UW Extension. Area Extension Director Report. Linda, are you covering for Pat or? So if there's any questions,
If there's any questions, I'll try to answer.
okay. Yep, did everyone have an opportunity to read the report? They're at a conference, so that's why they're not here, but Linda is here. So, were there any questions that Linda could take back? No? All right, Linda, you're off the hook. Educators report, did everyone have a chance to read that? And are there any questions? Okay, financials, the expense and revenue reports were attached. Are there any questions or concerns with those? All right, seeing none, Linda, thank you for coming. All right. Moving on to Land and Water. Central Wisconsin Windshed Partnership update. Yeah, okay, so Shannon's not here. Is he coming? We are going so quickly today that Shannon hasn't caught up with us yet, so that's okay. We'll come back to him if we need to. Going on to County Forest, we have a presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. I've got myself set up here, so I'll be, just bear with me a moment while I get everything turned on again.
Share this thing.
You should have.
All right, TV is waking up. Yes, that should. Okay, are those slides coming through on TV and on your screens?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Carolyn Crawley. I'm your land conservationist. So, over the next 10 minutes, I'll be giving you this update on our county forest program. Shortly after I joined the department this past July, I've been working closely with Dusty on the administration of our county forest. So, just got some updates for you, and happily, it is all good news. Are the slides advancing?
No. Cursor to cooperate. Because the TV is over there, you have to go in the opposite direction. Okay, there we go. Okay. So we've had some main achievements in this past year in 2022. A lot of those came from you and the board. So back in January, the county forest program was formally adopted. And in March, the 15-year comprehensive land use plan was approved by a resolution. So these really set us up for future success. And that 15-year plan is this big document that really tells us how to administer our county forest program. So that's our guiding document. And it includes things like scheduled treatments, which is the forestry term for the harvests and replantings that we'll be doing on our county forest lands. We also have been researching some land acquisitions, and this was something that previous board and committee members had identified as a top priority. We've been looking into around 5,000 acres worth of different properties, and we've really been pursuing about 598 acres, and that's on 2 different tracks in Rome and Big Flats. And more on those in just a minute. We've also been making some good progress on improving the access to our existing county forests. I designed and we installed some signs, custom signs for our existing county forest sites. And we've also been developing relationships with our counterparts in our neighboring counties and with folks like Caleb Reuter from the DNR, who is our county forest liaison, who's here with us today. So before we go into the specifics of our county forest, I wanted to just zoom out to the statewide county forest system. So what you're seeing here is that county forest system across the state. So there are over 2.4 million acres in the county forest system throughout Wisconsin. It is the largest public land holding. So we're part of a really exciting legacy in the county forest program. And that's about 14% of all the forests in the state. 31 out of 72 counties participate. Douglas County is the largest. It has over 280,000 acres. We are the smallest and the newest at 140. Our closest counterpart is Vernon County with about 1,900 acres. So these county forests really matter both environmentally and economically. They contribute about $35 million in revenue to the county forest program, to counties and towns that are participating. Forest industry, of course, is a very important employer throughout the state, #1 in 10 counties and the #4 employer here in Adams County. And these well-managed county forests are really important, not only for those direct revenues, but how they support other industries like our recreation, tourism, and rural character. So they're serving a lot of purposes. So let's zoom in on our current county forest.
This is a map that's generated through Whispers, which is DNR's software for monitoring and working and keeping track of our county forest. So we have 140 acres across 2 sites. Those sites are called compartments in forestry terminology. So we've got this one compartment up by Lake Camelot, which is 40 acres, and which is a mix of oak and pine, both sites are. And within this compartment, you see all those different stands kind of outlined by those lighter green lines. So those are different tree community types where different activities will happen within the county forest. So on this site in 2023, we do have some harvest planned. It's called a salvage cut, which will be removing a lot of the standing dead and fallen trees. And that will help kickstart a lot of new regeneration for the future. Our other site is the 100-acre site south of County O. This is just west of the Seven Sisters mine that we visited on the committee tour this summer. So this is a little bit older forest, a larger site, but also a mix of oak and pine. There is no harvest scheduled here in 2023, but there is some on the horizon in 24 and 25. So having those 140 acres is an excellent start for our county forest program, but it just isn't big enough to be meaningfully sustainable to the county for those long-term economic and environmental benefits. For that, the county forest really needs to grow. So this diagram is showing a process for getting a kind of stewardship grant called the Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Grant. This is something that was previously identified in our long-term plan as something that might be a good option for us. And what this does is it offers up to 50% of a purchase price. This is a state fund. And we really strongly meet the criteria to get this Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Grant for the purpose of growing our own forest. So we are at the very beginning of this process. Step one is putting this plan together, seeking approval from the committee and the board. And what I mean by meeting that criteria is that the Joint Committee on Finance at the state level is most interested, this has been indicated by our DNR partners, that they're most interested in supporting the acquisition of properties south of Highway 64. So we are one of the southernmost county forests. So we're really meeting that criteria, especially because of our strong potential to grow. So that Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Grant will cover up to 50% of that acquisition price, and the remainder would most likely come through this DNR project loan program, which offers a 0% interest-bearing loan, which gets repaid through the revenue from harvest on county forest land. So that's 40% of the revenue that will be generated over decades in terms of repaying that loan. So it's not coming out of our pocket upfront for the acquisition of those lands. So what I'm showing you here are our existing county forest sites in yellow outline and the 2 tracks that we're most interested in pursuing for those acquisitions in red outline. So to orient you a little bit here, that thick line in kind of the left third is Highway 13. We have the Tri-Lakes up at the top of this image, and County Highway O is sort of elbowing through the middle. These 2 tracks are currently owned by Meteor Timber. So these are managed forests over the long term. And they can really support multiple goals within our county forest program for those long-term economic and environmental benefits. There's a lot of potential here for those sustainable timber harvests, wetland and watershed protection. And we're seeing that landscape level connection, even though these sites aren't exactly contiguous with our existing county forest parcels. They have that hydrologic connection through the 14-mile and Big Rush Creek watersheds, and just those ecological functions like flood storage, degentrification. These are serving a lot of purposes for our infrastructure, for our natural resources and our people, as well as the recreational potential. So to give you a little bit zoomed in view, this is the more northern tract closest to our existing county forest by Lake Camelot. This is about 240 acres in Rome, excuse me. And what we're seeing here is substantial pine plantation, a lot of mixed oak and wetland areas. So again, meeting multiple goals and purposes of our county forest program. The other site is larger and is just east of Highway 13 in Big Flats. So similar layouts with pine plantation, oak forest, wetland areas. This one in particular has a hydrological connection to Dead Horse Creek. So a lot of really diverse functions happening here. If we were to go forward with these acquisitions of those 598 acres in Rome and Big Flats, that would be a 427% increase in our existing county forest. So we're more than quadrupling the size, really making great gains in getting to that point where we're really sustainable. So it'd be a big boost to the program, not only in size, but in growing that capacity to meet our goals with timber production, watershed protection, those recreational uses, wildlife habitat, etc. So we'd be going from our 140 acres we have now to 738 acres. So where I'll end up today is telling you a little bit about our goals for 2023. We have that first timber sale happening on the Lake Camelot parcel. That will cover 24 acres in that salvage cut. And we'll be getting a lot of technical assistance through the DNR to conduct that first timber sale. That means establishing the sale via bid opening this spring. We're monitoring that harvest for the logger with the successful bid. And we're making sure everything follows our policies. We can expect, thanks to Caleb, we have some ballpark numbers on what we may expect from that timber harvest. Because it's a salvage cut and because of the size, it's not gigantic number this first year, but we can expect somewhere around $3,800 from that first timber sale. An important thing to remember with any timber harvest that we do in county forest is that 10% goes to the town in which that harvest is located. And that's something that happens in county forests across the state by statute. So 10% of that sale will go to the town from. In the next couple of years, we'll have much more substantial timber harvest because of the quality and the size of those cuts in the future. Depending on what you decide today, we'll be going forward with those acquisitions in 2023. And that mainly means doing things like appraisal, going through the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant application process, working with the DNR on the project loan requirements, and actually purchasing the property if we went forward with that. And all of these goals are outlined in more detail in the work plan that's on your agenda today as well. But we'll, of course, be continuing to improve that access, encourage those allowed recreational uses of our forests, and make sure that they're meeting those project goals. So that is it for today. I would be happy to take your questions. Yes.
Bruce Mons, District 15. So the owners of this have established any pricing or have agreed, yes, this property is for sale, or is that still under negotiation?
Yes, you can probably address that more directly.
We have not started negotiations yet until this committee and the county board would give us the approval on that resolution that is on later. It is for sale, willingly for sale, and there has been a price thrown out there that we are still negotiating. We will start negotiating on.
To disclose that?
Court counsel suggested that I did not, because it may affect the negotiations as we move forward. As you'll jumping ahead a little bit on the resolution, before any purchase would actually happen, and when we actually get to the point of having a more definitive number ready to sign an offer to purchase, this committee would
they have to approve that. So, I mean, you guys still have the final say, it's just not. At this time, I've been advised to not give the actual dollar.
So, what are we going to be approving on what resolution then you set down into our agenda here?
It's under this heading. The next one's the work plan, and then there's actually a resolution to start negotiations and apply for the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Fund and that loan. Once we get everything approved, you guys still would say yes or no on the purchase.
You're talking county board. Or are you talking about a committee?
Both.
Okay. Is this land, is the sale of this land, is it waiting for us or is it for sale right now to anybody that comes along?
It is not actively listed. We found out they were, or that they did want to sell it. So we approached them. I would think that'd be available to anybody. But as far as I know, it's not actually listed with a realtor or broker or anything like that.
Doreen, is there a reason why we didn't look outside of the northern part of the county for county forests? I just think personally, having county forests throughout, having more access throughout the county would be more beneficial than just in one area.
We've actually looked at quite a bit. There's one that we, in all probability, in the next, say, 5 to 10 years, will be acquiring. It's about 4,000 acres, and that's in the south half of the county. It's something that the Nature, or part of it is anyway, something the Nature Conservancy currently owns. And we started working with them right after our plans were approved. Talking to them anyway. And we certainly looked everywhere. These were the first, not first two, but two prime candidates that did come up. But I 100% agree with you that it should be countywide.
The other question I have is, I know at one time the school system, they have multiple school forests. And they had talked about possibly selling or getting rid of some of those. Those are already non-tax parcels. And just wondering if there's any look at or anything done with those to possibly see if those could be acquired.
We can certainly reach out to them. We haven't, I guess I didn't know that they were interested in divesting themselves of those. A lot of what we did start with was larger tracts that are available as opposed to a 20-acre parcel or something, or a 40 even. Not that there's anything wrong with those, but a lot of times you get the most bang for the buck when you have larger tracts. And right now, a lot of that does seem to be the paper mill or the paper company's land. But I have no opposition to talking to the school if they're wanting to get rid of them.
Well, they're kind of in a financial bind right now. They might be more than willing.
One other thing I'd like to add that isn't immediately apparent in these plans is that the entire county is within what's considered the blocking boundary for where our county forest can grow. So lands like that would absolutely be eligible, and a lot of the TNC properties that they're very interested in us acquiring at some point are more to the south.
Supervisor Krug and then Supervisor McLaughlin.
Thank you. I would imagine that the tracks we're looking at right now with Meteor are probably open MFL, so we're really not looking at really a big risk on the tax side, I don't think. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I can actually give you I went through and did that. So for the 598 acres, last year's total taxes across all those parcels was $441.
And then I think one of the reasons, just to kind of add to that conversation on the northern side, is that, with Meteor owning tens of thousands of acres in the northern end of the county, the paper company's not looking to utilize it. This is exactly the situation that Saratoga ended up in. was not jumping on some of these things ahead of time and ended up with a big CAPO discussion that came up because of timber company holdings that were always for sale. These are all for sale with Meteor, by the way. They're always are actively trying to move these acres, and if the county doesn't jump in and take a shot at these, then something else will jump in and take a shot at these that will be less environmentally sensitive to the needs we have, especially right there, Horace and 14 Mile. So I think location, timing, I think everything is right here. So I just wanted to throw that in there because that's what Saratoga didn't do, that we have a chance to get ahead of.
Supervisor McLaughlin.
Thank you. I just have a couple of comments. I, for one, am really happy to see this moving forward. I don't, nobody in this room would be aware of it, but several years ago, of course, I was still the planning and zoning director. I tried to get it done. I made a huge effort. I had speakers from the grant program here in front of the board. And I suspect not much has changed. I mean, at that time, to figure out and do the program the way it did, the county would make their payments with harvest. You could even, they would even give grant money for wetlands. And they still do that, I'm getting from nods up there. I mean, it was a freaking no-brainer all those years ago. And as I recall, I think it was very close to being approved, but it didn't. But it was amazing at that time. It was hard to sit. I had done all the research and had people come in, and it was just like, what part of this don't you get? And so I'm glad to see that it's getting done. At least a little late, could have been a little earlier, but I shouldn't say late. It's better now than not at all.
Supervisor Mullins.
Getting back to the school force, isn't that located check 13 area?
There's-
Adams County.
They have multiple,
Grand
Forest
Marsh
sites.
behind the great school in Grand Marsh, there's.
Well, my question is, even if the county was able to persuade the school district to purchase all of the school forests, they still can use it. They can still go to a field trip because it's public access with the county. So it doesn't matter that they don't physically own that. It would be something that I don't know. I don't know that I would wait on that. I agree 100% that to get on top of that, especially with the referendum that did not pass in our last voting. Because again, what advantage do they get by owning it? It's the same thing when they sold the Pineland School and the other schools. What advantage do they have by owning it? Now, they let it go at unbelievable pricing, but still, there's money in their pockets. So I don't know if anything can be added to recommendation from this group to look ahead, whether we just say that to the head of the land and water and the forest administrator, or whether that has to wait till next meeting.
I mean, at any time, if you guys ever come across, oh, hey, there's 100 acres that I heard was somebody wants for sale. I mean, I can look at it anytime. And so I'll definitely do that.
I know the last time that they were talking about selling the school forests, a couple people heavily said, don't do it because they're getting close to harvest, being able to harvest from them. But I don't think they've done anything there.
Could I ask a couple questions? All right, so you said the Knowles Nelson would account for 50%, DNR would account for 40%. The 10% would be coming from.
If I can interject, so you're right, 50% from Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant. And then the DNR project loan also covers the remaining 50%. It's repaid through 40% of timber harvest
And this can go on for forever,
for decades.
okay, because
So
we
depending
all
on,
have maturity levels of the trees that we have to consider. Yes, go ahead, Dustin.
depending on the size of the loan, it's something that between DNR forestry staff, we go out, or you all go out and they say, well, here's what we, like those three numbers for the next for a few years. How long is it gonna take to repay? They don't want the loans out there forever. So it could be 20%. We have talked, after talking with them, this one will be at the 40%. to repay it, but if in the future we bought a 100-acre, maybe part of the school forest, you know, I mean, that's a lower amount. The other thing is that it's 40% off of our entire county forest. Not just,
Those parcels.
right, so even the 140 acres that we already have in the program, when we harvest out that, 40% would go to the state. So as our county forest builds, obviously that 40% becomes a lot bigger number and takes care of that loan payment.
Okay, estimated timber sales, 38, 39, 22, 396, and 2505. Municipality that's underneath that area gets 10%. What does the county get for that, and what does the state?
Whatever's left
For the-
after the repayment of the loan,
Okay,
and
so,
after the 10%.
so the 40% comes off before the state gets a cut of the timber harvest.
That is the state cut.
That is the state cut.
The 40% is the state cut
So we get half.
for the DNR.
We
Okay.
can have, yeah.
So we get 50%. Okay. Okay,
The other thing that she didn't mention in there, we get a lot of, a fair amount of assistance from Caleb and the DNR, their expertise, which trees to cut, what should we be planning for this year? And the scheduled number of hours that the DNR is allotted to any given county is, I think, mainly based on the number of acres in the program. So as we grow, we can get more and more assistance from it.
another question, salvage. This next harvest is gonna be a salvage. We're talking about jack pines. What are the age of the jack pines? Because it just seems like throughout the county, jack pines have a marked decline. It's like they come up and they die almost right away, and I don't understand what that's all about, but I would think that that harvest isn't gonna amount to much.
I can answer that if you don't have it right in front of you, Caleb, unless you want to.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, I'm not sure the exact age of the stand off the top of my head, I'd have to go back in the notes and look. But basically, yeah, jack pine is, it's like aspen or anything else, so.
Just have to push the button, Phil, sorry. That way anybody listening externally will hear you.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so jack pine, it's an early successional species, kind of like aspen or other trees like that, so when a harvest takes place or when natural disturbance takes place, it's one of the first species that comes back in, and it has a shorter life cycle than say oak or red pine or some of the longer lived species. So basically that's in the salvage to get cut early on before it, you know, finishes its maturity, then it's gonna start to die and break down, and then basically not be worth anything from a timber standpoint. So that's kind of the basis behind the jack pine, why it's in that salvage sale. Those other oak things.
In this 2023 harvest, they are primarily oak stands that are in that salvage cut. It's stands 2, 4, and 6, which are kind of the lighter colored areas around the east, south, and west of this map here. So a lot of that salvage cut is oak. If memory serves, I think pretty much all of the stands in that compartment by Lake Camelot are about 60 years old. Printed in the 60s.
Go ahead, Supervisor Rolls.
So, with every harvest, there's a replant.
Generally, yes. Sometimes it's left for natural regeneration, and other times it's considered a cultural treatment where there's like saplings and seedlings planted.
Okay, so therefore, that's not, we're not clear of the 50% take to the county, because out of that 50%, whatever the cost would be to replant would have to come out of there too.
Caleb, could you speak to those cultural treatments and that process?
Yeah, so basically, yeah, if the timber harvest was sustaining the future management, then the replants would come basically out of the revenue of the timber sales too. So for instance, these first 3 stands in the first sale, The reason they're first is because they're salvage, the trees are getting to maturity, or with the case of the oak stands, those two have some of the lowest stocking in all the stands on the two pieces of county forest. And there's not a ton of regeneration underneath of it, so those may be some places that we may need to get some future plantings in there, because they're, the way that they sit right now, they're not necessarily in a productive state in the future, as far as more trees coming up underneath of them, so that's kind of part of that salvage aspect, is getting those stands back into a sustainable state where there's gonna be trees there for the long term, not only to cut in the future, but also to provide habitat and all the benefits that come with having trees on the landscape. So that's kind of one of the other aspects of that salvage part of that first timber sale.
So you're right, it would be an expense, also an investment.
Are there any guidelines as to what would be growing once the salvage is, what would be planted, I should say, once the salvage occurs?
Yeah, so there could be a little bit of flexibility there. Typically oak and pine, what's growing there now is what's gonna come back the best. So if you wanted to change the state of the stand, basically, or the composition of the stand moving forward, you could, cut it and then replant it to red pine, which holds a lot more value in terms of timber down the road than say oak would. You can replant it for oak's great for wildlife, other uses like that. So there's different directions that we could go with it, but likely replanting it to pine or oak would be the most likely option there.
Maturity age for pine?
So for the red pine, typically throughout its whole life cycle, it's thinned about 4 or 5 times. Rotation age varies based on the site, but it's not uncommon to rotate it anywhere between 90 to 120, 130 years.
So we're talking a long time frame.
For final rotation, yes. So maybe every 15 to 20 years throughout its life cycle, it's gonna get thin. So the stand will continue to grow and produce well throughout the future. So there's gonna be those harvests, those intermediate thinnings throughout the life of the stand. And then, yes, finally, the rotation age where we essentially take the remaining overstory off and then either there's regeneration underneath or it gets replanted. That would be somewhere between 90 and 130 years roughly.
How much acreage are we talking about for this?
This
20
first
acres?
harvest,
Well, just the salvage and then the possible
salvage?
replanting,
24 acres.
24. Okay. What is the use of the oak that's gonna be salvaged off?
So a lot of it gets sold as either for pallet wood, or typically it's not the high grade lumber, so the pine is what typically goes to make boards or telephone poles or other products like that. So typically the hardwood, honestly, a lot of the contractors around here sell it as firewood too, especially if it's already standing dead, that's a big use for it. But then other lower grade products, pallet wood, things like that is what the oak goes to.
Go ahead, Supervisor Wells.
This is my last question on that. Have you seen a slowdown in oak wilt? Because as of like 5 to 10 years ago, it was pretty bad. Have you seen that slowing down at all?
No, typically it's not slowing down, especially in the areas of the county that I've been working in heavily on state land harvests. It's kind of one of those things where I think it's here to stay. It's not necessarily slowing down. The one thing that we try to do is, especially on the state lands, is cut it fairly aggressively when it gets to 80, 90 years of age. So you can go on and cut it younger than that, just to get it to regenerate before the oak wilt gets throughout the whole root system and kills it off. We can get in there and cut it ahead of that, then it can regenerate from the stump sprouts, and it's just healthier regeneration with less oak wilt in the stand in the future. We can get in there and get ahead of it and cut it before it's totally a lost cause. But yeah, it's still widespread throughout the county. I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon.
Supervisor Crew?
I think just again, on the timing side of it, land prices are finally coming down. I mean, they've been at their all-time highs. So Meteor having so much to sell and so much need to sell just to keep their bottom line healthy is a good thing for us. And then on the revenue side, I think, where we're at with projections, I think you're only going to see that increase into the future because timber prices are about as low as they're ever going to be right now. Because the use from paper companies has declined to next to nothing. So there are so many stands out there right now that I can't even sell hardly at all. So there's no real use for them. But as the, industry comes back and grows and different uses come up, I think our expected revenue will be a lot higher in 24, 25, 26 than it is right now. Just because prices are so low right now. So I think if you're looking at that as one of your deciding factors, I think you're gonna be well served to make these investments now, into the future when Meteor and other big holding companies are gonna see more value in these lands later. They don't have a lot of value in them right now.
Supervisor Rollins, you said last one.
For
I'm
him,
just teasing.
for him. We also have a Sand Valley, which has got fingers and things throughout looking for a lot of different land opportunities. So, I mean, that's, they're still expanding. So we have to, I don't know if that's,
I'm the same as on the other side of 13, I wouldn't vote for it, so I'm gonna be across the street.
yeah.
Can I just wanted to ask another question. When we're talking about the timber sales, we're looking at the dollar amounts. I just want to make sure that this isn't, I just harvested all of these timbers and I still have to pay the harvester, I still have to pay for all the other incidentals. Are we before or after that stage? Is this county or are we still paying out of these sales for the services that require the harvest?
So when it's time to do the harvest here in about 4 months, I guess it would be, we're gonna start the process fairly soon. The next item is actually one of the requirements we have to have. We put it out for bid and say, this is what we want cut. How much are you gonna give us? And that's the end of the process. And then we have to monitor it and see what they actually take off of the, as they cut it, what they take off the stand, what they take to the, well, I guess that wouldn't be in the salvage cut. Later on, when we do different types of cuts, what's actually being taken to the mill also comes back to us. But they give us a dollar amount and it's based on.
Yeah, so just example, for one of the salvage sales, I mean, there still will be live trees in there, so they'll be taking some loads of wood to a mill somewhere. If there's firewood in there, they may sell that direct, depending on who buys it. They may not take the firewood to a mill, they may just directly sell that to somebody, but basically for each species of tree out there, so there'll be a price for pine on the bid sheet, there'll be a price for oak, if anything else is out there, will be a price for that. And basically where the values of the timber sale come from is there's gonna be a set price for basically a ton or a cord of that certain species or that certain product. And when the loggers take it off the sale, then that's gonna be put into the billing and all that basically just sums up to the total of what was on the presentation slides.
Okay, so this is the bottom expectations. This is with all the expenses calculated in.
Correct.
Or estimated as best that we can.
Yeah, so this is the value of the product that would come off of the sale. So if, like for that first sale, if you were gonna get 3,800 from that roughly, I didn't factor in, like if we were gonna replant it, the cost of replanting it, that would come out of that number. So the totals that I gave is basically the total value of the wood product that would come off of the land for that particular sale.
I guess I'd like to expand. So it's not included in there, like the regeneration cost. Because we have a separate budget for what we're spending on as we move forward, we'll have a separate budget for paint to mark the trees and all kinds of equipment, seedlings or whatever else we're doing. So I have treated the actual harvest as going to be a separate number. I think to get more at your question though, yeah. The way, so the harvester goes in there and says, well, yeah, I think I can get this many cord and take a cord of pine out of here. Once I count in my labor and everything else, it's actually gonna cost me this. This is what I'm going to bid. no matter what it costs the harvester, we get $200 a ton, or whatever the actual number is. So the expenses are on them. Regeneration later on, Carolyn Line's time or DNR's time to go out and say, these are the trees you're taking, that's on us. But as far as dollar amounts go, they're gonna bid it the way they think they can make profit.
And one thing I will mention too, so the stumpage rates, which is what the lawyer would pay for each one of those different products or species. That's what I use to come up with the values, but when that all gets lumped up into the bid, we can put a minimum bid value on the sale. So it would basically be at the very least, you're gonna sell it for this much, or we're not gonna sell it. So we could say hypothetically on that first sale, I'm just pulling a number here, but okay, the minimum bid value is gonna be $3,000. So if we get a bid that's below $3,000, then we're basically telling the lawyer, we're not gonna take that. We want you to pay $3,000 or more for this. So there can be a minimum bid value set there that we don't want to go below.
Another question, you were talking stumpage. What about the stuff, for lack of a better word, that they put on stumpage so that they're encapsulating possible fungus, what have you, coming out of the stump and affecting the rest of the stand?
Sure. Yeah, so typically that's mostly with pine in Adams County. Because there's some root diseases that can get into the freshly cut stumps of pine. So a lot of times, especially if there's a large amount of pine on the sale, we'll write it up in the sale guidelines or the contract stipulations, basically that the logger is gonna, whenever they cut pine, especially during a certain time of year when the fungus is out, then they're gonna treat all those stumps as they cut them. And that again wouldn't affect the stumpage value or the value that we're getting back off the sale. That would just be another responsibility, basically the contract, whoever's cutting it would be responsible for getting the chemicals, treating those stumps. That would be part of their end to hold up as part of the contract.
And part of their bidding process, or
Yes.
our bidding process.
Yeah, so that would get factored in. So if they're gonna come in and they're gonna need to spray chemical on the stumps and treat the stumps, then that's an added cost for them, obviously, so they're probably not gonna bid quite as much when factors like that come into play. So another consideration for sure.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right,
I guess I have one.
Tori?
I have one more. Let's just say, I agree that these parcels are probably ideal for trying to acquire at this moment. But if we look into possibility of school land or something like that, that they want to sell, can we also write that into the grant? And make our acquisitions slightly larger? Because my thought is I would love to see, I would hate to see that opportunity pass us by if it's available.
I think our only restriction would just be the timing of the Joint Committee on Finance that does those Knowles Nelson allocations. So I think if we want to go for a larger acquisition this year, which I will totally do the work to make that happen, we would just need to move on that quickly.
Thank you.
How do you direct that? We're gonna be able to direct that in this, you talk about a resolution coming down after this or whatever. So are we able to change that resolution? Are we able to put that resolution to pursue Adams County school forest land on top of this recommendation by the Land and Water?
Give me 1 second to go through the resolution quick.
So while Dustin's looking at that, I just have a couple things. I did look into the Knowles Nelson grant program. $8 million is set aside for DNR and county forest acquisitions, if I'm correct, and I could be incorrect, but I doubt it. If funded differently, it is likely that Governor Evers would not be able to use his partial veto authority to protect the $8 million for DNR and county forest land acquisitions. Do we foresee any issues with that moving forward? I mean, I've heard that sometimes it's not as easy for the Knowles Nelson grants to actually provide those funds.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm probably not the best person to answer that question, so there's a whole separate, I guess, county forest specialist or, staff within the DNR that handle the grants. I'm not necessarily directly involved with the grant administration, the program in itself, so I'm probably not the best one from the DNR to answer those direct grant questions.
Are you referring to
Go ahead.
this specific request?
I'm just saying in general, Knowles Nelson grant requests.
What I recall from our conversation with Doug Brown, who was the gentleman Kayla was talking about at DNR, who handling those grants is his specialty. It was along the lines of, because of those implications that this grant may not be as fully funded in the future, that's why he recommended we try to push forward on this kind of in this year, because of the schedule of the Joint Committee on Finance making those decisions in this climate.
Supervisor Crew?
I'll give you a little rundown. So basically, Knowles Nelson used to be much better funded than it is now, right? So the funding we're talking about is already allocated in the last state budget. Those are the dollars that are still somewhat available. A lot of it's been spent. There's still some requests already at Joint Finance already. Typically what happens is those requests will get to the Joint Finance Committee, and there's always an anonymous objector. Every single one of them, there always is. So it'll always go to Joint Finance for a hearing. They'll ask the local legislators their opinion on it, then it'll move forward after that. But that money is there already. So the only thing that would cause any hiccups is, like Carolyn said, is if you wait until we start putting together the next day budget, there would be pressures for the next day budget to not allocate as much money for Knowles Nelson acquisitions as been the last 4 budgets that I've been involved in. There's always that pressure because we've got hundreds of thousands, if not millions of acres already. So Joint Finance does look at those with some skepticism, but that's why they've set the requirement to start looking at land further south of the state. Because we've got all the land we're gonna need up north. We've done every one of those acquisitions. Those are gonna be a harder sell. Further south, they want more to expand into those opportunities. So I think the way she presented it was perfect. It's the timing of it is right now. The location of it is the preferred location for it. Money is still available. Somebody at Joint Finance will object to it, but then they'll come to the local legislators and say, what do you think of this plan? And then Joint Finance will get together, have a hearing, and 95% of them pass through. And there's always that little speed bump though to say, okay, we're gonna slow down and look at it longer, talk about it more. For the most part, these are rather easy acquisitions. The only challenge would be if you try getting too big too fast. That would raise a few more red flags for objections from Joint Finance, so just kind of keep that in mind. I mean, if we're looking at growing 427% right now, I think that might be more reasonable. We're looking to grow 800%. Just gotta be careful when you're talking that fine line there and figuring out where you might want to add on to, try not to go too fast. So I get the pressures and the timing on the other acquisitions too, but if you push too fast, you get a lot more people that might not be interested. And I think the makeup of the next Joint Finance Committee should also be favorable. Sounds like Representative Dahlman, who also represents Adams County, has been appointed to Joint Finance. Sounds like Senator Patrick Pest will be appointed to Joint Finance. Also have Tony Kurtz from the Juneau County area also on the Finance Committee. So we've got 3 local legislators out of the 16 members on the Finance Committee. So you should be fine there, I think.
Thank you. One other, for school districts, and I'm assuming this is for school and school forest, there's 468 acres that are tied up for schools, whether that's the building themselves or school forest, I don't know. I just thought I'd throw that number out there. So,
If I had to make a recommendation, I would say to leave this resolution as it is. And then over the next, say, month or so, we can start looking at those other 400 some odd acres. See if they are still willing to sell it, what's available. if they can give us a price on it, and then move forward that way.
I mean, yeah, who knows, maybe they're not willing to sell it. Maybe they've sold it since the last time I paid attention to the school board, but there's multiple sites throughout the county with it, so it's just something to look into, I think.
And it is worth remembering that while these two funding options are very good options for us, they're not the only avenues for us.
Can we move on to the resolution?
No. The next on the agenda is the annual work plan. So we're gonna stop with the presentation. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you very much.
And we're gonna go on to the annual County Forest 2023 work plan. Did everyone get the link and read the work plan?
So this is a requirement, as being part of the county forest, that we have to have a work plan before we do the harvest. It's not super long, 7 pages, but it is actually a state statute requirement. And it assists us in defining what we're gonna do this year. But we do need to have that formally approved here. It is not a resolution, but we do need to have it approved by the county board also, so the motion would be to.
Pass this on to the county board?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna make that motion, you can go ahead and review it, because I trust that you put together.
And, you know, and thank you, I appreciate that. Carolyn did a lot of.
Second, but I read it.
Right, okay, so the reader gets the second and the one that gets the first.
The DNR has reviewed it and they were satisfied with it also.
Okay, so the motion is to approve it at the committee level and move on to the county board for approval. It was first by Supervisor Mullins, second by Supervisor Krug. Now we will open it up for discussion on the floor. So is there any discussion of this work plan amongst the committee members?
This work plan is currently for what we currently hold. Is that correct? Or does it also kind of open it up if we acquire more, that's fed right into it?
This work plan is most specific about our current county forest. It does describe those potential acquisitions.
Yeah, there's a part later on, 2023 goals. Establish timber sales, monitor harvest activity, regenerate harvested areas, continue researching acquisition, and improve access. So yeah, it definitely addresses both.
Just one thing I want to point out. In the county forest ordinance, under land acquisition, because this is part of the work plan, the number of acres are to remain at the 140 acres until such time that the county provides sufficient evidence to this committee demonstrating the appropriate utilization and successful administration of 1, recreational benefits to the public, including adjacent property owners and visitors to the existing forest, that would be the 140 acres, which include uses already specified. 2, proof of sustainable yield of forest products. And 3, a cost benefit analysis supporting the further loss of lands from our tax roll. So I'm looking at the work plan under the, what is it, number 4, continuing researching acquisition opportunities. I agree that we always have to have our eye on future. But I guess for me, unless we have proof that we're getting the job done on the 140, I'm not sure a pursuit of acquisition. I would say yes, continue to research acquisition, but I'm not sure about the pursuit. So that's my comment. Yes, Supervisor, when did you have something? Or I saw a hand go up. Okay, go ahead.
I don't know if this is a good time to bring it up, but
The Nature Conservancy land in Quincy Bluffs, 3243 acres. Takeout partner. Does that mean this could be done without a financial,
Not exactly. When the Nature Conservancy had already owned, well, it was 4,000 acres or so, that they purchased with the idea of turning it over to the state of Wisconsin. And that's what is currently the state wildlife area out there. My understanding was the Nature Conservancy purchased it, but then transferred ownership over. I believe the state did pay for it. The most recent purchase they have, during our talks with them, what it comes down to is Nature Conservancy can move a lot quicker than, say, a government body or us that are trying to get, say, a grant through the Nose Nelson or a loan. They can almost pull the trigger immediately, purchase these, but they don't really want to be in the business of holding a lot of land, so they would just assume transfer it to somebody who is going to take care of it, but they still need the revenue to purchase future lands. Through talks with them, it sounds like it would be close to what they purchased it for, even without much of an increase.
so the 3243 acres, that's not owned by the state, that's still in the Nature Conservancy. And it's a possibility that they would like to move that land.
That is the plan, correct, and that is the plan. There's no set timeline. When they purchased it, they purchased it within a month of us adopting this ordinance and plan originally. So they've only owned it for about 10-ish months. But prior to them purchasing or during their final stage of their process is when they brought us in. And I remember there being a press release in the paper and everything about the purchase. But they sought us out to their goal, their eye on the horizon is this is gonna happen, say, 5-10 years
The sale.
to us. So as far as the details, I can't. Way too premature to, we've gotten that far yet.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any changes to the language? I guess mine was the only thing I thought of was instead of pursuit, I would still put research. But that's just me. Go ahead, Supervisor Roth, I'm sorry.
I don't know what that difference is, because we're gonna pursue it. It's not the researching pursuit. I don't know what that would calm down, or what that would negate. You're just looking at it. Pursuing it is simply the act of looking at it or going after it.
To me, it's the physical, I've researched it, I want it, I'm gonna pursue it, I'm gonna get it.
But in any case, they've got to bring that back here. So
Correct,
regardless of.
correct, but what
Yep.
I don't wanna see us having do is everybody is spinning their wheels and perhaps maybe just the research portion is what we want the wheels spun on, not the physical pursuit of the lands, but I don't know, that's why I'm throwing it
Well,
out there.
again, if I may, if I'm researching and I find 450 acres, and now I'm going to pursue the avenue to look at the availability and all those things. So if we're researching and we're going over like a plat book, I would call it research, oh, this is owned by timber company, whatever. So then once I find that, what you're saying is then I gotta stop and then come back here and say, hey, I found an area here. Can we go ahead and start looking at this? Just what we're doing now. Can we go ahead and start negotiating with this and doing this? So I guess that's what
I guess my point is, when we're looking at the ordinance that's in place, and we're looking at the land acquisition portion, you can't pursue something unless you've proven it on the 140 acres. And as yet, I don't think these three things have been proven. So that's why I'm getting away from the terminology of pursued and going back to research. Just me. Go ahead, Supervisor Crew.
I just think maybe leaving it the way it is for now is probably better because it is so hard to prove a sustainable county forest program at 140 acres. There just isn't much that you can prove out there when you're just getting going. So maybe that just might be time to deal with maybe in the next year when we get further down the road, but I don't think there's gonna be much to be able to prove up to this point. You know what I mean?
Okay, so are we actively as a department gathering those numbers and whatever that'll say, hey, yeah, okay, we're doing it on the 140, even in a small portion, but
My understanding of that proof is that it will, in a sense, be happening in tandem with our pursuit or research of those acquisitions with that first timber sale and bidding process this spring. So, of course, all of that decision-making is yours of the committee and the board. So we'll be carrying out all of those scheduled treatments and recreational support, communicating with the public about using our county forests and, striving to meet those objectives in the ordinance. And if you approve, we would also be going to continue this work on the acquisitions.
thank you, Carolyn. Okay. So shall we end the discussion and go to the voting? All of those in favor, say aye. All of those against, say nay, and I am a nay.
And this is on the work plan.
This is on the work plan. As it's written. So there was one nay, everybody else was aye. It's passed by the majority. The plan, it'll move forward to the county board. Now we're going to turn our attention to the resolution for the Knowles Nelson Grant and County Forest Acquisition Loan. That also was attached. Bruce, did you read it?
Yes,
Okay. All right, your hand is up, but
make a motion.
you're making the motion.
Resolution be adopted as written.
Okay, we have a first on the resolution. Do I have a second? I have a second from Supervisor Crew.
I was just trying to remember.
Okay, so let's open the resolution for discussion. Anybody? Questions, concerns, Supervisor Crew?
Just wanted to put a bow on it. I think this is a good, like I said a few times, good timing, good idea. I think it's just time to start moving on some of these things to protect some items in the future, especially in light of action from admin and finance yesterday. We didn't really want to deal with any water quality stuff. This is the next step that we can do to protect some water quality issues in some sensitive areas of the county.
Thank you. Anybody else? Again, I'm going to give you my 2 cents. I think we're putting the cart before the horse because I haven't seen any deliverables yet on the 140. I know you put signs up. I think that's wonderful, but I haven't seen trails. I haven't heard from the public. I haven't really rationalized, removing land off of the tax roll for county forest. So that's just my opinion. Anybody else?
Can I address something?
You bet.
So the stumpage rate this year is, or what we anticipate for the spring, about 3,500, 3,800. 10% of that will be going back to the town of Rome. That would be about $380. So it's a difference of $61 this year. Between going by the county owning it. Taking the other, if we go through purchase the 600 acres, what that would remove. Just the stumpage. Or this salvage cut. Is within $60 of copyright.
And
Obviously.
because we haven't gone forward with any of those acquisitions, none of that 40% going away to a state loan is in play at all yet. So we would really only be losing, you know, in quotations, that 10% to the town of Rome.
So a question I have, because we all know that these contracts are 25-year or 50-year, because we all harp on the MFL, right? So the window of opportunity is either 25 years for a contract or 50. Where are we for this parcel of land, or 598, when it comes to their MFL contract?
Not a clue.
That would be an important kind of thing to know.
Except
Caleb, do you know? I don't know. Okay,
everything I've been understanding is they just keep renewing.
which is, it's a possibility. So then your figure may, you know, into perpetuity makes sense, or it may not. And then we're talking more money to the tax roll. Go ahead, Supervisor McLaughlin.
Thank you. I don't recall from my experience with this in the past, let me ask you this, property that's in MFL and we seek to purchase it, you're able to, is there an ability to just transfer the ML program to the new owner?
So, yeah, I mean, typically that's what does happen, yeah.
I would
Yes.
assume, but I.
Well, actually, they can get out of it if they want. At any point, anyone can get in and out of
In
it.
the back, but okay, that's all
Right.
leading up to, okay, so, you know, I've heard a few times about taking the property off the tax rolls. Well, if it's in MFL, it's not on the tax roll anyway.
It actually is, but at a very, very lessened degree. So,
Yeah, that's the point I wanted to make.
right.
One
Go
thing
ahead.
we-
Was the comment, the tax on that was you said $468 for the year or something like that,
448, yeah.
440, thank you.
And that's on a total of 580.
Go ahead, Carolyn.
One consideration that we thought about with these particular tracts is that those pine plantations in particular will be ready to harvest, whether it's a thinning or, so that there can be harvest in the near future on these acquired lands. So there is revenue potential there. We aren't necessarily waiting decades to continue having any revenue.
I'll be really interested in seeing the breakouts on the numbers for the harvest. So, in my past experience, it isn't substantial. So, just having said that, okay, so are there any questions, concerns from the committee on the resolution? Seeing none, I think we'll go for a vote. All those in favor of passing the resolution, say aye. All of those against, say nay. I'm a nay. The resolution will be passed due to majority.
All right. Okay,
Shannon, you've been so patient. We're gonna go back to you.
Okay.
Sorry, we just went flying through
Nope,
the
that
agenda,
was,
so.
That was all my fault. I think it took me about 10 extra minutes to figure out how to find this room when I got here. It's been a while since I've been in the courthouse because of COVID and the meetings, and I used to come in that side little door, and then when that was the emergency, I was like, oh, makes sense to walk around the front of the building to the main entrance. That was the main entrance either. No one actually got in. I was like, okay, how do we get up to 1830? Amazing. Left side, right, left. Yeah, I was like, I have no idea how to get up to 1830. Finally found it, that's why I was a little bit.
No problem. In front of you is a microphone and you just touch that green button and you can share with us on the Central Wisconsin Windshed Partnership Program. Thank you.
Okay, am I live? Well, it's on the. Okay, so, yeah, so my name is Shannon Rhodey. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the project coordinator of the Central Wisconsin Windshed Partnership. Every year, kind of go around the LCC meetings at least once a year, kind of give an update on the program, everybody know what we're up to, how things went this year, and so on and so forth. So real quick, does everybody here, have we heard about the windshed? Yeah, familiar faces and whatnot. Like I said, it's been a couple of years, a lot of us have been on Zoom. So,
Does everyone want to have him give a summary so that you're aware of the Windshed Partnership? Or I know you and I have been on a past committee, but I think it would probably be a good idea, Shannon. to
Sure.
give them an idea.
Yeah, I can give a real quick kind of rundown, so, but we are a program, so we're based out of our Hancock Ag Research Station over in Hancock over there. We are administered through the Portage County Land Conservation and Planning and Zoning Department, so that's technically who I'm employed by, and who administers the program. But we work all over around central Wisconsin, and really doing a lot of tree plantings to help control the wind erosion problem around central Wisconsin. So obviously around Stevens Point, Plainfield, Hancock, all in the central Santa area, wind erosion is a big problem. So we try to work with landowners. I'm planting windbreaks and rows of trees to try to control that problem. I don't think we're ever gonna be able to prevent it, no matter how much conservation and windbreaks and conservation tillage is done out there, but we do what we can, work with the farmers that we can. And not all of them are even open to really doing this. They want more room and more land and everything like that, but we work with whoever we can to try to plant trees and windbreaks and living snow fences and whatnot. So that's really what drives this whole program. We are kind of a self-sustaining program now. So everything that we do by planting the trees and everything is all kind of funds our entire budget, funds my salary, all our equipment, the workers that I hire for the summer and everything like that. So so it is kind of like even though I'm employed by Portage County, it's like I'm running my own business. It's like I'm an independent contractor doing work for basically whoever. We're not really limited on where we can go. We've done work. I think I have projects in probably 14 different counties now. And that ranges all the way up to, I have projects north of Anago. We've done a lot of work for the DOT down there. I just did a project this year down by West Salem for the La Crosse County Highway Department, down to Green Lake County, over by Marshfield, Wood County, and kind of everything in between Marathon County. We've done a lot of work up by Wausau. So we're not really limited on where we can go. We try to kind of stay around the central Wisconsin region, because that's where we're based out of. But, you know, and obviously drive factors come into play too when we're trying to quote projects and whatnot, but we're not really limited on where we can go. So so the windbreaks, ever since I started this job, and February 3rd will be my 20th year work anniversary, which is also crazy to believe. I've been doing this for 20 years. But when I first started, the windbreaks is what really drove this program, doing the windbreaks for all the farmers and whatnot. About 7 years ago, 7, 8 years ago, I got connected with a guy who works for the DOT, the Department of Transportation out of Madison. He started looking at some of our projects that we did around central Wisconsin and really liked what we did. So he started hiring me as kind of like an independent contractor to start doing plantings along state roadways, whether it's a 2-lane state roadway. We've done a lot of work along Highway 82 in Adams County, or we've done a lot of work along the 4-lane interstates and so on and so forth. So so that's really kind of expanded. I think that's why I got a lot more projects in other counties and kind of spread out a little bit more. I did a big project for the DOT this year, way over by Appleton. Actually right along Highway 10 and 441 over by Appleton. So but everything we do is all kind of based on the linear footage or miles of plantings that we plant. And when I say that, that's everything that we do and install this fabric wheat barrier over it. And then with that planting, that fabric wheat barrier, we also have a 3-year maintenance program where we will come in and maintain that project for a period of 3 years. And that includes hand weeding around every single tree or shrub that we plant. We mow around the edges of the fabric, and we also replant any dead or missing trees for those 3 years. So say, for example, everything I planted this year, we maintained it the rest of the year because we plant in the spring, and then we'll maintain it for 2 more years. So it's 3 years, including the planting season. So we basically try to guarantee a 95% survival rate after those 3 years are up. But we're basically babysitting those trees for 3 years. We kind of realized that those first 3 years are really critical and getting things to grow, getting the roots established and whatnot. And after those 3 years are up, they pretty much can kind of take care of themselves. If by any chance, after 3 years, we haven't met 95%, we will kind of go back and maintain that living snow fence or windbreak until we meet that 95%. So yeah, everything that we do, this whole program is kind of funded by the linear footage and plantings that we do. We don't get any outside grants or funding from anywhere else. Now, the projects that we do when working with conservation departments, these landowners are eligible for cost share money, just like any other conservation program in any county. And usually you can cost share those projects at 70%, and then the landowner pays for the other 30%. So I guess that's really the only outside money that we get that really funds the whole program. So just a rundown on how this year went. So every year we kind of have a goal. We have kind of a whole budget put together. We got to kind of balance our budgets. We kind of have a goal of how many miles, basically of trees to plant. We try to shoot for that, 12 to 13 to 15, if we can. So this year for 2022, we planted about just under 66,000 linear footage of plantings. So it's about 12.5 miles. And like I said, that includes, whether it's trees or shrubs, the DOT work, the windbreaks for all the farmers and whatnot. So with that planting and then what we maintained for the previous years, we maintained about 33.6 miles. Every fall I go through and kind of count all the dead and missing ones to kind of see what I need to replant for next spring. Now, we got a little over 2,500 that I counted this fall, and I includes all 3 years of plantings that I'll have to replant for next year. That will probably change a little bit over the winter. Sometimes we get some winter die off, but so looking at that, which wasn't a bad year. We had decent moisture this year, the last couple of years, so success rate has been pretty decent. But overall, looking at budget wise, and everything's kind of a little bit different. Like the DOT projects I do are a little bit more in depth of what we do, so we charge a little bit more. There's a lot more safety and just a lot of things that kind of go into that, extra labor and stuff like that. So there's different price breakdowns of windbreaks, and there's different price breakdowns, whether it's a double row of shrubs or trees, and then obviously the DOT stuff as well. So overall, it was a pretty good year. It was a really busy year. Like I said, we had a lot of running around we had to do because we had the products down by West Salem, then we did the products over by Appleton. And that's looking at an hour and a half to hour and 45 minutes one-way driving, and between hauling equipment down there to plant and then by the fabric, and then do some of the maintenance. It kind of added up, but overall went pretty good. Some areas, we do a lot of our work is obviously right around like Portage, Adams, Juneau, Sheriff counties. So it's in a lot of beach sand soil, so the ground is easy to work with. But some of these other projects we've done has been in like heavier clay soil. There's a lot more, a lot more goes into it there. There's a lot more labor and stuff that kind of goes into planting and laying fabric. Everything is a little bit more difficult, especially when it kind of dries down. It's really hard soil, but overall it was a pretty good year. And budgets are looking pretty good for this year in general. So it's, for the program, when we do this, we usually have a crew of 4. So it's myself, and I hire a guy who's been working for me for about 16, 17 years. Part-time, he helps through the whole summer, and then I usually hire a couple of student interns from UWSP. Been working with that college up there and a professor to do internships and whatnot, and that's been working out really well. We've been doing that for about 10 years, and usually I get 1 or 2 students, 2 if possible. So we have a crew of 4 that go up and do all the plantings and the fabric laying and the maintenance and mowing and weeding and whatnot. So that worked out really well. But yeah, we basically start in the spring, do the plantings, and then how we do the fabric laying, and then the maintenance goes on the rest of the summer. Usually my workers end at the end of August, when the one guy goes back to work for Heartland Farms. He drives truck for them when they potato harvest. Students go back to school. I do a lot of the fall, maintenance and windbreak evaluations and whatnot. And then over the winter, do all the final evaluations and putting everything in the folders and kind of going over everything and start, kind of making my sales pitch and going around and meeting with landowners and highway departments and whatnot for spring 2023 project. So this past year in Adams County, we did a couple projects for the Adams County Highway Department, and we did a project for a farmer that Bula Geringer farms the land, but somebody else owns it. So we did a windbreak for them over there. So looking at doing some more work in Adams County here and basically anywhere else. So this is my time around to kind of go around and give updates to all the LCCs and kind of let us know, let them know what we're doing and how the program's going. And yeah, so I guess that's kind of a quick rundown of, this year and what we did and kind of some of the services that we offer. I guess I will open it up to if anybody has any more specific questions or about what we did this year or the project in general.
Anybody with questions for Shannon? Do you think you're gonna have about the same amount next year to?
Yeah, it's always hard to tell. We always, like I said, we've got to try to meet a goal to hit that. Because if I'm not doing the work or getting the projects in or whatnot, this program doesn't exist. So like I said, the fact that February was my 20th year here, I remember when I first started my first couple of years, this program was kind of in shambles. There was quite a few project managers that kind of went through before I started. They were only on for a year, if that. you know, so it was difficult for them to try to come in, bring somebody in and train them and everything like that, so. The program was late, I was a little unstable, when I first started, but, and then, like I said, I guess I never would have guessed that 20 years later, here, I don't think anybody probably would have guessed that this program was still gonna be around 20 years later, but now we're still going, we're still planting trees, we're still going strong, so we'll see. I mean, nothing's ever a guarantee. That's just the thing. You know, I gotta get out there and make my calls and make my contacts. You know, a lot of the work that we do, especially for the windbreaks, are for farmers that I've been working with every single year, you know, like the Mortensons and the Hartman Farms and the Wysocki's and, you know, Oakries and some of the bigger farmers around the area. I usually work with them almost every year doing something. Morzellas and Hummerskis and stuff like that. So, but again, it's, nothing's really ever a guarantee. You know, one thing about the whole wind erosion and all that is it's never really an enforceable issue, wind erosion. But it's obviously it's a concern, but it's never really an enforceable issue. So if they're sand rolling across the field, there isn't anybody saying that they have to do something, they have to go and plant a windbreak or anything like that where I would come in. So I guess, yeah, it's just, you know, get out there and, you know, make the calls and try to make the sales. Well, actually, right before I came here, I met with Megan Mullenweg, actually. She might want to do some stuff on some of the land that they personally still own after they sold out. And I got some other ones I'm looking at, and hopefully I can work with the highway department again. I'm doing some random projects. They like to take some areas where they put up snow fence every year, whether it's on an intersection or maybe on a dryland corner of a field that's not really getting used. And if we can plant, you know, some trees or shrubs there, kind of make a living snow fence out of it, that's what I work with them. I've been doing a lot of work up in Portage County, kind of doing the exact same thing, and, you know, obviously work with the DOT. I got a bunch of projects lined up for them as well. So we'll see how it goes, but it's looking pretty good so far. I got quite a few projects already lined up, so.
Excellent. I have one question. When we're talking, you know, dirt erosion, or we're talking wind with snow movement,
Mhm.
do you have any statistics, you know, that say, hey, you know, instead of putting up that fence, if you put up your plantings, this would be as effective, more effective?
I personally don't, but I know that the guy that I'm working with for the DOT, they have all sorts of different kind of like fencing styles that they put up. And I think they have a little bit better knowledge on different fencing and how that works and how the snow, let's say, blows through it and whatnot, whether it's those 3-tiered, you know, metal slates or whatnot. I can't remember the name off the top of my head is what they call it, or just like the plastic snow fence or the wooden snow fence, or you know, a double row of shrubs or something like that. From what, you know, what I realized over the years, everybody's kind of agreed that, you know, having something out there is better than nothing, whether it's to try to control, you know, blowing sand across a field or a road or blowing snow, something is better than nothing. We're actually, I've been part of a group this last whole year, actually, a bunch of different natural resource professionals. We're actually updating the windbreak standard, the windbreak equation standard right now. The final one will be coming out in the next couple months, I believe. We've been meeting once a month, every month over Zoom. We'll kind of redoing, updating that standard. So that's been kind of interesting to be a part of that as well. But so I personally, to answer your question, I personally don't have any stats on exactly how that works, but I think, you know, that guy, his name is Peter, the guy that I've been working with down there, he might even have some better ideas or better stats for those specific. His name is Peter Wisniewski. It's a, I don't even know how to pronounce it.
I'll reach out.
All right, I mean, I can be using.
That'd be great. That'd be great. All right. Anything else for Shannon? All right. Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah, appreciate you guys letting me come and give my update. So now next time I do this, I'll know exactly where to go.
Supervisor Mons might have something.
Well, I was saying that my wife and I had the opportunity by vehicle to drive through very ranch areas of Wyoming, those triple tiered metal, that's all they had. I mean, it was amazing.
Right, yeah.
Miles.
Yeah, I've driven through like the Dakotas and whatnot when you head out there, and they got, I mean, their living snow fences are, you know, 8-10 rows deep, and they're mixtures of shrubs and trees. And although we try to do that here, like some of the living snow fences I've done for the counties, I try to do, you know, a couple rows of trees and a couple rows of shrubs. We just don't have the room. People say they don't want to give up the room to do the massive one that you see out there. But yeah, they're pretty impressive when you go into those areas on the styles and how far we can keep them off the road and all that. So yeah, I can never, it's hard enough trying to get 10 feet, you know, 20 feet from a potato farmer here than 30, 50, 100 feet, that would be, nice to have.
Yeah, and not just funny note, we didn't see anybody for, I'm not gonna say hours, but we finally saw a Schwann's truck. And so he gets back to his company, the guy says, how'd you do? He said, well, I got 2 sales today.
Thank you, Shannon.
All right, well, thank you.
All right, we are on to the land and water staff report. It was linked to our agenda. Did everyone have a chance to read it? And do we have any questions for Carolyn is still here? Or Dustin or Megan?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. You too.
I normally don't have them speak on their,
I know, but they're physically here, so I thought, what the heck?
no, but where I was going with that is, Megan, I don't mean to put you on the spot, and I know I didn't tell you ahead of time. Do you want to give a 30-second update on your poster contest? Because I know, and the reason I bring that up is because it's like, no.
Sure. Yeah, so the poster contest, I've gone to several, I don't know if you've seen in the my report, I've been to several different classrooms and did homeschooling and taught the lesson on One Water, and the deadline is December 16th, which is 2 weeks from now, or 2 weeks. So as of right now, I've got some prizes from local businesses that have donated, and I don't have much right now, but once I get posters, then that's more exciting to me then. Once I have a number.
Can you tell about the judging?
Oh, the process?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the past, and I'm gonna try and keep it the same way, so. Once I get all the posters, depending on how many we have, our department, and if you guys want to be included in this too, that's fine. We'll pick the top 10 in each category, so there's 6 categories, I believe. It's by ages, so they're being judged by the same age group, and then, so we'll pick the top 10 because usually we get 100 or so. And then after that, I take pictures of them and put it out virtually, so everyone anybody in the public can vote if they wanted to. And then from there, it goes on to the first place always advances, so first place from there will go on to area. So because the state has 72 areas, we split it up, or 72 counties, it's split up into areas. So our area is the Lake Winnebago area, and it has roughly 8 to 9 counties in it. So first place from Adams County will go to area, compete against them, then they go on to state and compete against all the areas, and then from there they go on to nationals. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but last year the theme was healthy soil, healthy life, and I do have a she's in 4th grade now. She was in 3rd grade last year, and she's actually going to be competing in nationals in February. So fingers crossed that Adams County can actually be in a national contest, so.
Is the committee interested in being part of the judging process? Because it's kind of a kick. They did it last time, so,
Or at least the initial, because everybody
Yeah.
can, after we pare it down to that 10.
right. So we'd be part of the paring down of the 10 process. So let Megan know. Thank you.
I think she just sends it to us. Excuse me, Madam Chair. I think she just sends it to us, and then we just, if we vote, we vote, but if we don't, we don't. I guess that's
Yep,
what's
she
happened in
did,
the
she did
past.
last time, yeah.
I guess we can still have that process.
Assume that it'll be coming.
Yeah,
All right.
and now that we've heard some good compassionate stories, it might lead people to vote.
It wasn't accidental that I might have had her talk.
Any questions for Dustin on the land and water report, staff report? Seeing none, going on to the dams report, Dustin.
No major updates. I'm still waiting for the bid out on Roche Creek. There was an issue with the boat. He had a number of boats, this company that I've been working with, he has a number of boats. the one that he brought up to actually go out and do the estimate for us on pulling the concrete and rocks out of the lake bed was not functioning when he came up. So now, I may not hear anything. Unfortunately, I was gonna reach out and touch base with him again, but I'm guessing we're waiting until March or April on that. There was a report that McGinnis went up a little bit again after we got it back down to normal levels. I got the report 2 days after we got 2.5 inches of rain. I did go down, yeah, I was up maybe 3-4 inches. And then shortly after that, we got the ice on, so it is what it is. The association's aware of it, or the president of the Lake District is aware of it. And I did also talk to the County Board Lake District rep also. All I have on this.
Okay. Lake Alliance report, and I don't see Chuck, but let me just check. No, I don't see Chuck. I do see Bill Pegler. Bill, do you want to give us any intel on the Lake Alliance report, just in case? Is there any questions? Maybe Bill could field them if there are any.
Sure, I'm available.
Thanks, Bill. Anybody have questions for Bill?
Nothing new to add other than,
Hold on, Bill, 1 second. We're gonna.
oh, sure, sorry.
Maybe.
Okay.
All the sound is coming through here.
Translate.
Can you try speaking again, Bill?
Sure, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we'll be very quiet so that we can. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's not much new to update other than the town of Jackson did have its public hearing on the Wolf Lake ordinance on vehicle restrictions that's mentioned on 1B. So, and we've taken the input from that to modify the proposed ordinance, and the town of Jackson will be voting on that on December 20th. So other than that, nothing else new since this report.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions for Bill? Go
Is
ahead.
that the regular town board meeting, the 20th, Bill?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Okay, we will hear from Doreen on the FSA report.
Again, I don't have a lot. We don't meet until Thursday. So maybe next month I'll have something for you, but just a quick couple things. We had a couple vacancies in the Columbia and in the Westfield office that have been filled, that one had been open for quite some time. Like everybody else, the federal government is having a hard time filling positions. So I think we have another one retiring at the end of the year, so we'll be back looking. And then election was held, and it includes the southern end of Adams County, and we will be counting ballots on Thursday. I believe there's only one running, so I think it'll be a quick count. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Doreen. Any questions for Doreen? Seeing none. Central Sands Groundwater County Collaborative. I attended that meeting on November 28th. It was an in-person meeting at the Hancock Agricultural Station. Election of officers took place. The same officers will be in place with the addition of a secretary, Mary. I can't remember her last name. I should remember her last name, but I think so. Could be Mary George. So she took on that position. There was some question about potential funding down the road for that group and what it would look like per county, because it's a county collaborative. So they're developing a questionnaire that's going to go to each member in the county to take back to their specific corporation council to have them take a look. I can't tell you what that questionnaire is yet because it's in development. What else? The groundwater resource guide, the documentation, is complete. I think it's going live on an internet format. They're trying to figure out how the person that did the research is going to be able to present it to the counties. What that's gonna look like, it's probably gonna be Carla Romano having a recorded presentation that then is accessible by the county board, various county boards of the counties. So more on that when I know more about that. The next meeting for me is December 19th on that. And I don't know if there's any questions, go ahead.
This is the one that we can determine the amount that we get.
No,
This
I
is
mean,
not
the voluntary amount for,
Yeah, for dues or for,
yeah, we're out of that. We,
yeah, we did not participate in that.
right,
Okay, very good, thank you.
yep. Any other questions? Oh, all right, DATCAP report, did everybody access that? It was linked to the agenda. Go ahead, Supervisor Mullin.
I haven't put those two together. I get an email. I'm also in a business that reports to Department of Ag. When we get the email report is the same one, Megan, that I get monthly.
Oh, the last meeting, it was discussed that as I get the reports, I will send them out to you guys.
That's so they
you should
did,
have
they are
already
the same.
received December's, but it's not attached to this agenda.
Thank you.
So, yeah, just a timing issue on that. Okay, anything on the DATCAP report? Nope. We will move on to the Hale cost share agreement. That was connected to the agenda. I had a couple questions on that, actually. Question I have. Put my cheaters on. In section 2, it says upon recording this contract constitutes a covenant running from the land described in section 1B and is binding on subsequent owners, heirs, executors, administrators, successors, trustees, and assigns and users of the land for the period set forth in section 3. So I flipped over to section 3. And is this fully filled out? It didn't seem like it was fully filled out, but I could be wrong. Where is that designated in section 3? Because I couldn't find it. So it's the period that this runs. For some reason, I want to say it was 10 years. I saw 10 years somewhere, but not on section 3. I could be wrong.
Oh, it was there.
Okay.
Number 4? Oh, sorry, section 2A4.
Hold on.
To maintain the cost share practice for at least 10 years from the date of installation.
Okay, and that doesn't need, the only reason why I ask is because in the little footnote, it has insert P if the land is taken out of production into perpetuity, or it has also a 15-year time frame.
Which neither would apply.
Neither would apply. Where would it be if it did apply on this form? Where would you find that? Sorry, I'm looking at that and I'm like, I have no idea where they would even.
Where do you?
Right here. So, I mean, there should be something up here that would pertain to that, but I'll be darned if I know what it is.
Years of CS.
Where are you? Okay, so that's where we would have the P or the 15 or the 10 or the, okay.
2 asterisks.
Oh, okay, I got the two answers. Thank you. After psi, yeah, whatever. Okay, good. Okay, that's all the questions I had on that. Okay. So, do we need to approve this contract? Any, that's what I'm thinking too. I think it was just informational, isn't it, to the committee? Yeah. Okay, so are there any other questions, concerns on this document? Okay, then we're gonna move on. Drone purchase discussion.
All right, so. Okay, so a little background on that. One of the requirements in NR 135, which is a non-metallic mining, is that our expenses. Our fees that we charge are in line with what we spend. We had the DNR in, I believe it was this spring, and we found that we were not spending enough. Our fees haven't changed, and once you start counting in salaries, we're not far off, but they said that we're over the percentage we should be. So one of the items that we've talked about for actually quite a while is the purchase of a drone to do annual flyovers on mining sites as opposed to physically walking it. Or walking the entire thing. Safety is a big issue. And then there's another, as we start talking about it, there's a number of other items that the drone can be used for within our division. A lot of it, Kyle put together a list. He is the one doing the 9 key element plan. But these can actually apply countywide cropland surveys, shoreline surveys, measurements, documentations for various cost sharing practices or other practices installed, forestry management, seeing what's in there, possibly getting a better overall picture instead of walking through. Stream monitoring, mine inspection, dam inspections, healthy lakes projects, farmland preservation field visits, easements, we talked about it for algae blooms, monitoring. So algae blooms, there's a number of other potential uses as well. So if the unit that we looked at with a couple of extra batteries and sending 2 staff members to get licensed. The total cost is about $5,500. I do have it in the budget. It's more, actually, let me back up. So the software that would come with there that we're gonna get, or proposing to get, you can set flight plans, so it will always take everything exactly the same elevation, location, so you can start to build a overtime model as far as the stands in a forest or anything that you see fit. The reason I put it on the agenda, I wouldn't have normally need to, but historically in various county governments, drones are I don't know how to exactly word it, but something needing a concern, I guess, would be a fair way to put it. So I wanted to bring it to the committee to get your thoughts on it.
Fine. I think the concern arises for permission from landowners to fly over, if I'm pegging that correctly. How do we navigate that?
Sure, so the only time we'd be using it is when we have permission to be out there. So if we're going and doing a mine visit, we're taking a drone with us, like, okay. A couple of the bigger operators have their own and they actually supply us with those, but we don't have that available for everything. If we're doing a crop survey, it's something that they've invited us out to. Same with shoreline lake protection, if they're having a major erosion issue or something like that. It's something they're inviting us out to. It's not where we're going and doing that whole section or something to that effect. Because that is a concern of ours too, and it's getting used over property that You actually have permission to.
So Stream Bank, I know that when we went to Lake Winnebago, and they were talking about the Stream Bank, how wonderful it was to have a drone, right? Because then they didn't have to walk at all. They could actually come right on in and check things. I'm assuming that would be part and
Right.
parcel of this.
And our staff does that now, and this would eliminate a lot of that. The numbers were, I believe Kyle was estimating was somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 hours instead of 40. Now the other benefit of purchasing one is there's agreements that you can have with, I believe it was NRCS, where they would, not just NRCS, other entities also would potentially rent it from you or rent us. Because we'd be.
So we would rent it, or we would have it and they would rent it from us,
That one.
the second.
We would be-
So we would maybe be able to recoup some of our
That's what I'm saying,
5,500.
yeah.
Okay, Supervisor Road.
Since this is in your budget, you normally would not have to bring this to us. What do you need from us?
I don't really, I mean, I guess a vote would be appropriate, just so it's in the record. But it,
To have a vote, do we need a motion? Madam Chair?
Well, I think if nothing else, you need our opinions, right?
at a minimum, yes, but
I think in the day of technology, the way it is, it's a smart move. I think embracing technology, I should say established technology is a smart move. I think we're foolish if we don't start embracing. You know, it's kind of like staying on dial-up when there's broadband available. So I'm for it.
Is there a ability within just our county to find out if other departments have need of a drone and kind of commit funds from more than just us or not?
we've actually started that. Another division of mine, it sounds like Sam and GIS will be able to use it. And we would make it available to others. I don't know if I'm not getting the sense that anybody would have the use that we would have it. Plus, we do kind of, to some extent, have to spend the money.
Okay.
So I mean, if we get carried away and recoup too much, well, now we're back in the
Shoot
same
yourself in the
boat.
foot.
Does this model, I'm so sorry, hold on one second, the 5,500, does that have the video gyro on the unit itself?
Yeah, the one we looked at is a pretty impressive machine. 12 megapixel or better camera, actually, multi-rotor design. Then it actually comes with a fair amount of impressive stuff, but then there's a software program for the automated flight paths. There is a potential down the road someday. Upgrade that we can, software program, and Kyle and I were talking about it a little bit, and it's someday Kyle can explain when we get to that point, but it's really impressive. It does 3D models. Yeah, it's impressive. That's the best way I can describe it right now.
Okay, Supervisor Moon.
And you are wearing two hats, right? Land and water and building. Or,
This will not be used in the zoning division.
okay,
Supervisor McLaughlin, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just gonna note that probably something all of you can realize for yourself, but yeah, that drone would have many potential uses, many. I mean, even finding properties that aren't on the tax roll, because there's structures there that got built or small, the list is endless.
Yeah, but we gotta be legal.
Well, I know, and I guess that some of that brings to mind too, so there's people that routinely in the greenery months that fly and take property photos and then come by your house and hoping to sell it to you. Well, they don't need permission to do that, so I guess I'm is there a specific law that says a drone? You're not afforded that right, so but yeah, I just wanted to point out, I mean, there's the list of uses is pretty long, and that you could potentially use, if I should say it. Yeah, I guess, well, I was gonna ask straight out, Dusty kind of answered already, I said, well, I guess I could still ask it in this way. If you're flying the drone over, let's say you're looking at shoreline stuff and you discover a violation of some ordinance while that drone is flying there, is that gonna be ignored or acted on?
I can't describe how much it pains me to say this, but I know it's the right thing is that unless we have permission there, I can't act on it, or if I cannot see it another way. I don't think it's fair. Then I would act on it. There's other ways to see things. But if that's the only way I have, then I don't feel comfortable doing that.
I was just asking, I'm not gonna say that I really had a notion really either way, that I was just more curious. But yeah, certainly GIS. Could use it. This county needed an education when we delved into the world of GIS because board members didn't have any idea the extent of how valuable GIS was, and finally they got on board years ago with that, but yeah, so I mean, like I said, there are a multitude of potential uses, and I think it's a good idea. It can save department manpower for doing something you can do much quicker.
Just because I'm terrible about looking at chats, and I appreciate the nudge. Kyle wrote in, yes, as per FFA regulation, no violation of reasonable privacy. Companies cannot fly over your house and take photos, and no flying over private land without prior authorization. So.
With drones.
With drones.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, Supervisor Winter.
is that a written? Is that a written, what you just said, is that written?
That's FFA, FAA. FAA, yeah, so, what is- it's-
Oh, the.
No, FAA.
right, FAA, yeah.
That's the one that the licensing comes through.
Well, my concern is privacy issues. I know you said that I think you're on the up and up there. But down the road, what's to say that somebody else will not use it to invade somebody's privacy issue without their permission? And if that isn't written, I would be definitely opposed to it. It wasn't,
Well,
So
so
you're
you're flying
saying-
the drone, being licensed to fly the drone is under FAA
Correct.
regulations, so it is written. And
I'm
it
sure-
is there, it would be federally regulated,
Right,
much more than county.
yeah, and it would be just for the Land and Water Department, or I shouldn't say that because GIS is a side shoot of the overall department, so go
And if
ahead.
it happens that they're in violation, then it's up to the landowner person to report that, and then they would be under the same violation.
how do you even know that? I mean,
Well,
Well, I think,
I don't stand in my land and just look for.
right, but if you're taken
Drones.
to task over something, Bill, I'm assuming they're gonna have to show you some kind of evidence, and if it's evidence gathered illegally, there is your, I don't know, proof that it shouldn't have occurred. So, but yeah, I would say, for sure, write that in, because I think everybody's concerned about that for whatever reason. So,
And I would say make that as part of
Condition of purchase.
part of the motion. Like,
Okay.
put it in there. And
so you wish a motion for this, okay? So
I think that's smart.
I'll make a motion that we approve the purchase of a drone for the Land and Water Department under the condition that they will not fly over land that is not authorized by the owner.
Okay, so we approve the purchase of a drone for the Land and Water Department
and GIS
Well-
area, because they're,
It's
It's our
only one of
purchase.
funds.
okay,
Who else uses it would be.
up to you guys.
Yeah.
But then they'd have to fulfill that same,
They are not allowed to fly over private property without landowner approval.
And that would include leases.
to include
Landowner or
other
lessee,
departments.
no, lessees.
Other departments. Supervisor McLaughlin.
Well, is somebody gonna second that?
Yes, do we have a second for Doreen's motion? Supervisor Moan seconds that. Do you wish to repeat that for us?
Oh, no. I don't have it all. I'm gonna need some help here, but, motion Olson, Mullins to approve approve a purchase of a drone for the Land and Water Department. So I got, what else was there?
With the condition that they do not fly it over private property without landowner / leasing approval.
Do we have to put in a purchase price at all? I mean, things are all,
No, I'm not gonna put a purchase price because
that's crazy. I don't think we can,
That's already,
okay. Go ahead Supervisor McLaughlin.
This probably may not be the right place to ask it, but it just strikes me, our conversation. Law enforcement. There's gotta be tons of law enforcement agencies that use drones. And the question, I guess, is if they're searching for a marijuana field in the middle of a pine plantation. So do the same rules apply to them? They can't fly over your property without,
or a warrant, I would imagine they'd have to have approval from a judge. It would be under reasonable search.
I would assume it's the same as any other search.
it just, well, I kind of just begged the question to me when I thought about it.
That'd be a great question for,
But you know, that could go against, that could go along with someone who has dementia and is lost somewhere. I mean, of course, we want the person found, but anything they see on the way of finding this person is not admissible for anything, would be my guess. Guess.
Kyle wrote that law enforcement must have a warrant.
Thanks, Doreen.
You're welcome. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's perfect. Thank you, Kyle. Okay, so I want to read it one more time. Then we'll take our vote, or well, actually, we can open up for further discussion if we wish. Go ahead.
Motion by Olson to approve a purchase of the drone for the Land and Water Department with the condition that they do not fly it over without a landowner / leasing approval.
No, the approval will come from the leasing, because they'd be the same as the land and water. It's the user. The user would not.
It would be the leasing of the land.
Of the
Oh,
land.
oh, yes, okay. Leasing of the land. Okay, I'm thinking renting of the drone.
Well, see, they could-
That was my point.
Yeah, so I
So-
guess.
If you lease the drone to somebody, we would like, I think that they should be under the
So,
same.
I'm just gonna say that they can't lease the drone. They would have to operate the drone
Yeah.
because they are licensed.
so then I'm. So if-
He
if
would be
Kyle
the one
gets a-
operating.
Yeah, if Kyle gets a license. I'm not just handing somebody a drone. Not handing them that big of a dollar drone. They would be hiring Kyle to go out there and do whatever. it is they need. Like say a crop survey for,
Okay, as long as, that's what I meant as the lease.
oh, I thought you meant,
So maybe we should say that the licensed operator of the drone must secure authorization somehow. Can we put? Doreen.
well, then I was
Need a
just saying,
motion.
lessee of the land and just say,
Land and water licensed operator.
this drone. Can't be operated over property without the owner's permission.
It's her motion, so she
Yeah.
needs to.
I think we have it covered. I honestly
That's
do. I think we're trying to make it more complicated than it
I
is.
think his way would be simplifying it, Doreen, just my
I was
just
just saying,
2
I'll
cents.
lessee, because I thought you were talking,
Oh,
I rented the land and I need to get approval.
yeah, no, okay, that's fine. You can take out less
Yeah,
leasing, or you can just leave landowner.
Okay, so
If that's-
we're gonna open this up for discussion. Do we have any? Looking around, not seeing any. let's take our vote. Those in favor of this motion, say aye. Aye. Those against, say nay. No nay, we were passed unanimously that this purchase can move forward. Okay, financials, they were attached. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Next meeting date is Tuesday, January 3rd. Whoops, sorry.
There's a
Supervisor.
question. I don't know if this committee can answer it or not. I don't know if anybody heard on, next door that just east of Highway 13 on Cottonville, there was cougar. Now, that presents a threat. So do we talk to Land and Water? Do we talk to Sheriff? Do we talk to
DNR.
DNR?
Not him, he's a forester.
Other DNR.
Actually, I think you'd almost have to call USDA, Wildlife and Fishery.
But Carolyn,
The only reason why is we had some bear problems. And DNR couldn't handle it, law enforcement couldn't handle it, we were directed to USDA, which would be the Wyatt Pruitt? Yeah, so yeah, he would be our contact.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
you bet.
I'm sorry, I just have a question about the drone. When, let's say you will have two people operating it, when they leave, then do you have to pay for the retraining of somebody or licensing, or how does that go?
Yes, and
Okay.
it's $175.
Okay,
It's-
It's
yeah,
just a
it's not
question I thought
horribly
of, so.
expensive. I have two, or I was going to have two done. Just so we have the redundancy, I mean.
Yeah.
Because they won't always be together. But yeah, when either leaves, but Carolyn's never leaving,
Oh, good, that's good to hear.
so we're good for like 40 years.
Okay,
I have one other question I forgot to ask. Land and Water Staff Report, the position for Anna James, is there any news on that?
Oh, yeah, I meant to do that. We have offered the position, and somebody starting on January 9th.
That is awesome news. And are they, is it the same credentials as Anna had, so aquatic invasives?
Yes, this person actually has quite a bit of experience, is going to do a phenomenal job from what I can tell. And my microphone wasn't on, so we have offered the position to somebody, they have accepted it, January 9th is their start date.
I'm just gonna say that sounds like a really long time far away, but it's really not, doesn't it?
Right, and it would be actually a lot quicker, but we're going through the holidays.
Yeah.
So I mean, do you really want to start a new job 2 days before Christmas and then, you know?
No, I think it's
Vice President.
appropriate, it just seems January is so far away, but it's not.
Right.
Right around the corner. Okay, thank you. All right, so next meeting date, Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023 at 1 PM in this room. And is there any other further business? No? So since there is nothing else to be discussed, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.